There was a question. It says, in destination IP, could it be a public IP? Yes. As stated before, if you're going to do across the internet, if let's say you have server A is at a remote site and server B is your destination, where that is your home office, and you need to replicate across the internet through a WAN, just make sure that your firewall is allowed for and configured to pass through port 873. So you want to make sure, and TCP/IP and UDP, just make sure that they're open so that we can receive the information. Because it's really using rsync. So now we see that the process has begun. Let's verify it. So we want to go from status, tasks, and test 2 has completed. And so now let's look at our destination. Destination 2. Before it was empty. And let's refresh. And there you go. So what you did was replicate from the main source server, DSS source, to the first DSS destination. And then from there, you replicated to the third destination, DSS. And this allowed you, in essence, to back up from server A to server B, over to server A. You can even actually go back into, I do want to make a note, let's say you wanted on the DSS destination. If we wanted to create a task to go back to server A from server B, let's go ahead and remove this server because we no longer need him now. And just to keep it simple. So we have this task going to server C. We'll end this task. But let's say we wanted to replicate the shares on the destination back over to the original source. What you want to be careful of, and let's go ahead and bring them up. So let's go ahead and let me bring up the share on the main source. So here we have the data where we originated from all the source files and directories and share, and from that share called data. And what we want to do is say, okay, we've replicated from the source over to the destination, and we would like to go now back from files from the destination over to source. What I want you to be totally aware of is when you do that, you want to make sure that you're not replicating back to the original source share. This can cause corruption, or maybe you're overwriting files that you shouldn't be. So what would you do? You would probably want to create another share called backup. And in backup, create the data replication agent to enable it. So here we're going to go right over here. So it's in a way doing cross-replication. We'll create another name, keep it simple, Todd. Password, keep it the same. So now this will be our backup. So let's say we're doing some minor changes to this source destination. I mean, now the new source destination, and you made some type of additions. So what we could do is replicate from the destination back over to the source. I'll call this test 2 again. We'll use the destination share. Automatically picks up the snapshot. We'll set the IP address of the old source. Now we're going to scan. It immediately finds one share. And there's the share backup. That was because we enabled the data replication agent. Enter the user login and the password. And for this purpose, we're not going to enter a time. We'll do a time, but we'll just keep it quick, and then we'll kick it off with the play button. So if you were to make changes on the destination share, and then you wanted to replicate it back to the source for whatever reason, some corporations do that. Maybe the home office made some changes, and they want to send it back to the remote location, they can do this, and then they have access to the shares of backup. So we're going to go back. Up, we got to enter where users are able to access it. Let's go back to the source, go back to backup, and allow anyone to access it. Oh, I forgot we were on ADS. So this is a good example. What we need to do is, since I'm on an ADS server, and we do have access control list, the ADS is controlling. So we want to click here on the shares, then go down to the access control list. Here you'll see the logical volume 00. Double click on it, select the share backup. Now select the users and groups. Here we have domain users, domain guests, and users, and then of course we have, now you want to select access permissions. Make sure all of them have the ability to access the share. I must have put a certain restriction on it. So let's take a look at it. We know the files are there, and how can we verify? You can click right down here, and you'll see in backup, it looks like the replication did work. So now we just need access to be able to get to it. And we'll take locking off. And looks like I didn't allow anyone in here. So let's put a few people. And we'll make sure that we have domain users and DHCP users and domain guests on our groups. I look like I tripped up myself here. Now we got an interesting problem. So where I've set on the others, we had specified all the data. So my Windows server is apparently locking down, and I have to set that share for ownership. So what we'll do is just basically quick to move on because we're falling behind schedule. I'm going to set this and switch it to my LDAP. Now what this will do at this point, allow everybody access to get to it. Then what we could do is go back, and we can go ahead and show how to set the access control list. Now here's a question that came in. It says, can replication be added to an existing shares volumes that already have data on it? Yes, but if you do that, you want to make sure that you want to set certain values, such as don't delete files in the data replications, because you don't want to remove those files if they're not matching from share to share. In very rare instances, do you really want to do that? So let's go ahead and select back into the share of backup. And now you see that we're able to access it. Let's go ahead and sit back ADS. So it would be interesting to take a look at what actually locked it down. So C. Johnson, it looks like you were asking that question. Can replication be added to an existing shares? So volumes that already have data on them. Yes, you can do this at any point in time. So if I were to create a new share, we'll use this one here, for example. And we'll call this for test. Create the share. Obviously, our users came back up. And we'll just make a guest anyone. And we'll apply users and groups. Now let's look back up, and we see that we have tests that we created. And so let's go ahead and we can create new files for this purpose. We just let's grab some of the destination 2 files. And we'll paste them into the new share. Okay. Now, what we're going to do is we'll take this and start. We now have, I don't know if you can see on the screen, let's try that again. Pull up that 220. There you go. So what we did is we created one called test. Here we put some files on here. So the question was, can we do a data replication? Can we replicate to existing logical volume that has an existing share in files? So this would be, let's say, considered the destination. So what we want to do is set the test to allow for data replication. Put the username Todd, and we'll add our password. Now we'll go to our source, and we'll create a task. Task 3. We'll select our source share called destination. Automatically grabs Snapshot. And here we'll have the destination IP address, 220. Found 2 shares. And here's the test. So we have existing files and directories on this share. Put the username and password. And here's where you probably want to state, don't delete files that are already on there. So for that question, that's where you would, and that's your answer for that question, and creating that existing files that are on there. So here on test 3, we'll see that we'll just create an interval, 10 minutes, and we'll kick off the time, and we'll push it through.